Camping was a fun and adventurous activity when the summer days were at their finest. People set off into the wild, pitching their tents in the woods and along the fast-flowing rivers, soaking up the rays and spending quality time with their friends. Among those people were Jake, Cody, and Josh. They had finished work for the weekend and had taken off into the wilderness away from the bustle of city life for a couple days. Peace and tranquility sounded good right about now. The three guys had pitched their tents, Cody and Josh in one, and Jake to have his own, and set up camp for the evening. The glow of the flames from their campfire lit up the snug forest clearing as the sun started to set and nightfall soon cast itself over them. Josh cooked some food for himself and the guys, while Jake got to cracking open the beers they had brought with them for the weekend. They sat around the fire after filling their bellies with burgers and sausage, topped off with the traditional marshmallows before cans of beer started to make the rounds. Cody had brought his guitar, which the others thought unnecessary, but it actually turned out to be a great addition to the night. The campfire flames were glowing and the wood crackled just as Josh went to throw some more kindling on top while Cody went about strumming his guitar and Jake opened another can of beer. Those two didn't seem to catch what Josh just had. He thought he heard a voice, or maybe multiple, somewhere in the distance. It almost sounded like someone whispering in the trees that were all around. But Josh chose to ignore what he heard as he went to sit back on the thick log after feeding the fire. If Jake and Cody hadn't heard it, then he must have simply imagined the whispers. He quickly forgot about it as more beers were opened and Cody continued to pick and strum at his guitar strings. But that wasn't the end of it, it seemed. Josh heard those strange whispers again, far in the distance of the woods. But this time, Jake heard them too. "Did you hear that?" Jake asked Josh when seeing the shared look of confusion on his friend's face. "Yeah, I did," Josh told him. Cody expressed that they were both paranoid because it was dark and they were probably a little tipsy, which Josh and Jake eventually accepted and turned their attentions back to the fire and to conversation of the new girl Cody was dating. But after a half hour went by, Cody finally heard what his friends already had done, whispering in the trees that didn't sound too close, but at the same time not too far away. All three of the guys heard it the third time, and each of them started to grow more uncomfortable as they all glanced in confusion at one another. Josh told the other two that he had heard those same whispers earlier, when neither of them had noticed, but he ignored them, thinking it was nothing. But it was obviously something. There were people there, in the woods, late at night. More hushed voices started to travel through the spooky darkness of the trees, and the three friends began wheeling around on the spot as they attempted to locate their possible stalkers. "Okay, that's enough," Cody spoke, loudly, trying to sound confident and unafraid. "Joke's over. Come out," Jake demanded, but nothing. No one appeared, and the murmuring voices subsided for some time, leaving the guys standing in suspense. But then, chilling laughter suddenly echoed through the woods, and the guys jumped with terror, unable to control the fear flooding through each of them. Jake ordered the others into his tent, and neither hesitated to do as he said. Josh put out their campfire with some water they had brought for the trip, and the three friends hurried into Jake's tent together, zipping it shut and sitting there silently, spooked by that creepy laughter filling the woods. It was a woman's laugh that they had heard, deranged and psychotic. That was how it had sounded, and none of the guys wished to hear it again. They were panicked and uncertain now, in the middle of nowhere at night with no cell phone service. Of course they had no service. Cody was quick to mention this in a state of fear when he checked his phone. But then, Jake roughly grabbed a hold of Cody's arm to silence him. He put a shaky finger to his lips, causing Cody and Josh to keep quiet and listen, as Jake was doing. Footsteps. The sound of footsteps could be heard in the clearing, around the campfire, and all around the two tents. Josh was silently punching a slow-motion fist into his other hand, indicating for them all to jump out and defend themselves against the camp intruders. But the other guys went against that idea. They didn't know who it was out there, or what means of defense they, themselves, were carrying. Judging by that freaky laughter and strange whispers, they weren't just anyone. They might be playing a prank on some lone campers, or they could be someone dangerous, someone unpredictable. The guys were staying put inside of the dark tent. The footsteps continued for at least 5 minutes, and then the bizarre and forced heavy breathing started to follow. Jake, Cody, and Josh could only hope and pray that whoever it was on the other side of the canvas, they would stay there. If they decided to unzip it, then who knew what was going to unfold? Whoever the person, or persons, were, they continued to lurk and creep around the camp for over 40 minutes in which the guys choked with terror. But finally, after what seemed like hours but wasn't, those sinister footsteps died away, and the bizarre heavy breathing clearly used to frighten the guys was no more. Whoever had been out there had retreated back into the trees. But Jake, Cody, and Josh weren't about to follow after them. They remained in Jake's tent for the duration of the night and early hours of the morning. They even took turns to keep watch while others slept. They weren't taking any chances, not after what they were hearing had been so frighteningly close to them. It hadn't been any kind of rejuvenating sleep. For all three guys, it was broken and tense. They were all exhausted when 5 a.m. came around and daylight was arriving. But it was time to get out of the woods and head back to the city. They were all in agreement that the camping trip should absolutely be cut short. Jake was the first to exit the tent, followed closely by Cody and Josh. But the friends were left in a bigger state of shock and panic with what met their eyes all around their camp. Jake shrieked in fright as Cody and Josh stumbled backwards. All around them, beside the fire, around their tents and the logs they had been sitting upon, were literally hundreds of dolls. Creepy and old, even hand-customized dolls. Large, medium, and small. There were too many to stand and count. "Oh my God, look at some of them," Josh gasped with horror. Some of the dolls left around the camp had had their eyes pulled out. Some were drawn all over with black marker pins, and others' limbs were ripped off. Cody patted for his friend's attentions as he noticed something else. A piece of paper, pinned to a tree close to Jake's tent. It had been written upon with black marker too. It said, "Hope you all slept well, boys." That was it. That was more than enough. The guys didn't even pack up most of their belongings. They just grabbed the essentials and necessities and they abandoned the camp, fled the woods entirely, and returned to Cody's truck some distance away. Relief had never been so prominent when Cody was speeding out of the woods, putting as much distance between them and the creepy camp as possible. Who had done such a thing? Who in their right minds would go to such an effort so to place hundreds of scary and demonic-looking dolls all around someone's camp in the dead of night, in the middle of a vast and remote forest? Jake, Cody, and Josh would probably never know. One thing they did know was that they would never be returning to that area to camp ever again. The city had never seemed so appealing to all of them than it did now, as the forest began to melt away into the distance. None of the guys would be stepping foot into those trees for a very, very long time to come.